Hi everybody, welcome to Story Time with Miss Schaller. Today's story is called Thumbelina. All right everybody, now I want you to just think about this for a minute. Thumbelina is the name of a little girl, and when I said her name, did you hear me say anything that you already know? If I say Thumbelina, do you already know about part of her name? Did you hear me say thumb? Show me your thumb. There it is. Now, can you believe this, or do we need to use our imagination? Thumbelina is the size of a thumb. That's small. Yeah. So I'm going to show you some pictures of her, and it's kind of a goofy story. So let's hear a little bit of a silly story, one that we use our imagination for. All right. Thumbelina by Hans Christian Andersen, retold by Rosie McCormick. Once upon a time, there was a woman who was very sad because she did not have any children. One day, she planted a magical seed. That night, the seed grew into a flowering plant. "What a beautiful flower," said the woman as she kissed the petals. At that moment, the flower opened. Inside the flower sat a tiny girl. The girl was no bigger than a thumb. The woman named her Thumbelina. At night, Thumbelina slept in a polished walnut shell. One night, a mother toad came and took Thumbelina away. Why did she do that? The mother toad wanted Thumbelina to marry her son. The mother toad and her son placed Thumbelina on a water lily right there in the river. Then they set off to plan the wedding. Thumbelina was very sad. She began to cry. There she is crying. Up there. Oh, there she is crying. Sorry. A fish heard Thumbelina's sobs. It nibbled on the stem of the lily pad until the leaf broke free. Oops, sorry, over here. Nibble, nibble, nibble. Now you are free. Thumbelina began to float down the river. Summer disappeared and winter came. Thumbelina was cold. A field mouse took pity on her. "My dear, you must come home with me," the field mouse said. So now here she is. She's staying warm, and she's being cared for by the field mouse. Thumbelina spent the rest of the winter in the mouse's snug burrow. They became good friends. Now remember, Thumbelina's very small. She can fit into the small home of the mouse. In a burrow nearby lived Mr. Mole. He liked to visit in the evening and hear Thumbelina sing. One evening while visiting Mr. Mole, Thumbelina found a swallow. The bird was cold and hurt. Here's the bird, not doing very well, cold and hurt. Thumbelina cared for the swallow and brought him food every day. Mr. Mole, here he is, had fallen in love with Thumbelina. He wanted to marry her. But Thumbelina did not want to marry Mr. Mole. Once again, she was very unhappy. One day, the swallow that Thumbelina had cared for came to help her escape. Together, they flew south to warmer lands. In a new land filled with flowers, Thumbelina met a king. He was tiny, too. Thumbelina became the queen. She and the king lived happily ever after. If you could see my picture, the king has wings, and all of the others in his kingdom have wings. Do you know what it's called when you have wings? You're really small, you can flitter about. Yeah, I think it's the land of the fairies. That's where she landed. Well, that's the end of the story. It's kind of a crazy, silly story, isn't it? A lot of things happened to Thumbelina. And Miss Schaller has this for you for the land of the fairies. You can cut out your fairy cards. And there's Thumbelina. There she is. All right, so you can talk to her about when she loves the fairy king. I think he's here in blue in my story. So I'm going to match him up to this blue fairy, or he's in blue. And these would be other friends who maybe came to the wedding. You could make that wedding. You could even give them this and take your people over here to tell the story of when they had a beautiful wedding and the flowers were out and Thumbelina and the king lived happily ever after. And you could play this game with all the characters from the story. And boys and girls, you can answer some questions about the story. Let's see if I have those over here too. Where did I put those? Here they are. All right, so you can answer these questions. Number 1, where did Thumbelina like to sleep? Did she have a regular bed like you and I, or did she have a walnut shell? Circle your answer. Number 2, who carried Thumbelina away from her home with the old woman? So she first was with the old woman, who, remember, she kind of came out of that flower with the old woman there. But who took her away? The toad mother and her son. Remember that? You would circle it. Number 3, what animal did Thumbelina care for all winter long? Did she care for the bird, the swallow bird, or did she care for the son of the mother toad? Okay, the boy toad. All right, think about who she took care of all winter long. And then I think it was her friend that helped her to get away. Then who did Thumbelina marry? She really didn't want to marry Mr. Mole. There's Mr. Mole. And there is the king of the fairies. I think you remember who she married. Okay, so those are the questions for today's story. And then there's one more thing you can do with it. If you'd like to, you can try to make your own little Thumbelina and make her a little bed to rest in. So here it goes. I'm going to show you mine, okay? Stay with me. All right, friends, this is what I have. There's a nice day with the flowers are out. There's my flowers. There's this little bug. Hi, kids. The bird is chirping. Chirp, 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 chirp. The bee is a happy bee. Buzz. Bring on the summer. Dragonfly flies by. And then look, what do we have here? It looks like I found a little shell outside. I did. I found that on my walk. And I think this is an acorn shell, boys and girls. It's a little smaller than a walnut shell, I believe, but I took just a little bit of a cotton ball. Here's a full-size cotton ball. I had to take off just a little bit to make my Thumbelina have a nicer bed, softer bed for her. Okay, here she comes. Hi, Thumbelina. Hi. You're just the same size as my thumb. Let me show all the kids. Yeah. Just a little person here to hop into this little shell of a bed. All right. All right. And then we'll use this little leaf to cover her up. That's her blanket. Oh. There we go. We have a nice little scene for Thumbelina. When she wakes up, she can play with the birds, the bees, and the flowers, and the bugs that are around her. Shh, Thumbelina is sleeping.